contraception. So he took a week off from journaling, came back to journaling and said, I didn't think I'd come back so soon. And then had this conversation with himself, his own inner German who abandoned the complexities of being a German in favor of being a shepherd, apparently in India or in Native American. It wasn't clear. But, yeah, okay. Carl Jung wants to get himself back in the game. Just for fun, let's put a picture of James up on the big board, the screen. I'm assuming that this is James, the brother of Jesus, one of the disciples. Obviously, that's an artistic representation. Here's another artistic representation, since he's one of the 12 disciples. And there's been a lot of centuries, even a couple of millennia, if you measure it that way, of Christianity. I can comfortably and with confidence say, here's another one, and another one, and another one, and another one. There's a lot of artistic depictions of James, and another one. All right. I twaba wizo hey, I twaba wizo hey. Nea, na sezon, bi seze, na sezon, bike, shike, etc. If there are any Navajos watching this, please comment below and rate my pronunciation on a scale of 1 to 10. Be honest. I learned that from a white lady in 1995, and it's only played in my head since then. So if you give me a 3, I will say, that makes sense. If you give me an 8, I will be shocked. Anyway, it's basically, telling the sun to shine and to rise in the morning, telling the grass to grow, telling the dew to, basically telling the elements to do what they do. So obviously the elements are going to do it anyway, but we're aligning ourselves with nature. Or in the case of the Lord's Prayer, not nature, something else, some imaginary thing. So what was I talking about? That's blue. And then yellow is the middle. Hopefully, a little bit of BT is leaking through Edward today. Sorry. But it's disorienting. I'm disoriented. Anyway, so that's the Hermit, as in the cover of that Led Zeppelin album, the old man with the lantern. I tend to think of him with the head of a jackal and a lantern and a caduceus. Anyway, it's Virgo. So that's fun. And it's also kind of like, okay, so what's the heart and there's levels. There's the level you experience it right now, and there's levels beyond, and levels within. So they say there's trees within trees within trees. Like, so what do people in India, what do they think of it all? I'm like, don't even ask. Oh my God, it's the worst. It's just the worst. It's worse than your most terrible uncle's take on things. But then, the algorithm showed me this Indian comedian right here.
Who would have thought that the same man who brought so much of pain and suffering and death to the Jewish community would come back reincarnated as their prime minister?
Wow, that's a bit much. But he does backtrack. He does reel it in a little bit.
I just want to let you know, it's not okay to think like this. Okay, so shame on all of you. It is not okay to blame every Jewish person in the world for the actions of the Israeli government or the IDF. That's like blaming every Muslim person in the world for the actions of Al-Qaeda and ISIS, and we have never done that.
So anyway, that's Daniel Fernandez, if I recall correctly. Here's his channel. Subscribe, check him out. You might be thinking, Daniel Fernandez, that doesn't sound like a very Indian name. That's why I'm guessing he's from Goa, because they tend to have very Portuguese names here in Goa. I'm going to go with Kal Chakra incense. Let's put a Kal Chakra up on the screen, and another Kal Chakra, and another type of Kal Chakra. I don't know. chakra means wheel. There's different things that get called chakra. There's that big wheel with the Mara eating samsara, and then there's the multi-armed couple in the midst of their private time.
Hello, how's it going? Editor Edward here. So sometimes I appear when the version of me that's doing the reading calls upon me, and sometimes I appear of my own volition. And this is a case where it's the latter. So you just heard BT. It's almost like a throwaway line, and this might seem like a nitpick, but I wanted to just jump on this just so that I'm not putting misinformation out there. I try to avoid doing that as much as possible. So you heard me say, there's two different kalchakras just off the top of my head. First of all, I'm coming from total ignorance. There's a Kalchakra Tantra, like a series of Buddhist texts in Vajrayana that is like a deep, like people dedicate their lives to just that one path, that one particular method. You're probably familiar, if you're a little bit familiar with Tibetan Buddhism, with this image of, well, not this specific image, but images like this of Tibetan monks very slowly adding one grain at a time of colored sand to a great mandala, and then at the end someone takes a dorja. Do I have a dorja? A dorja like this one, perhaps, maybe a little less colorful, and then they slide it from the outside to the center, and then they mess it all up, and then they gather up the sand, and then they take it to a nearby stream. So that's Kalchakra. That mandala is the Kalchakra mandala, and sometimes they depict it as like a Tonka image like this one, or like the ones that appeared on the screen earlier. But then you heard me or BT describing a different mandala briefly when I said Mara eating samsara, Mara eating the wheel of samsara. That is actually this, which is called Bhava Chakra. So Kal Chakra, this is Kal Chakra, this is Bhava Chakra. The prayer and invocation of Paul, based on the definitions I just gave, I'm going to have to put in A. If there was an A minus, I would put it in A minus. Can we put it halfway between A and B? And the secret book of James, I'm going to have to give it a D. Just because, it wasn't actively vile. It wasn't a direct contradiction of all that's right and good. And by right and good, I don't mean by Christianity standards. I mean actual right and good. It just struck me as a 14-year-old trying to cleverly write something that'll sound deep. Yeah, I mean, he comes out and says, I've spoken thus far in parables, but to you two, I'm going to say the truth. He who was sick before and then got better is going to get sick again, but blessed is he who was never sick, because if that's not a fucking parable, then you're talking about sick people getting better and getting sick again. I'll put it between C and D. So we got an A and a B, between A and B, and a between C and D. All right. So we can get rid of the tier system. Let's bring back the tier system real quick. I just want to point out if we've got Martin Luther over on this hand, and we've got Nag Hammadi. Yes, that is a chicken man. It'll make sense later, maybe. Anyway, that's the image, that's the icon of the Nag Hammadi podcast, the Chicken Philosophy Nag Hammadi playlist and podcast. It's Abraxas. It's an image by Manly P. Hall or whatever artist he roped into illustrating it and not using their name. You know how he was. No, maybe you don't. Anyway, but he's on a background, like the edge, the border around the edge is
the actual a picture of Nag Hammadi Scriptures, the old parchment, and then Martin Luther, right? So this week, the last week. So in other words, in the previous cycle. So the cycle goes. Let's remind us of the cycle. So it goes: Carl Jung, Nag Hammadi, Martin Luther, Secret of the Golden Flower, Meccan Revelation, back to Carl Jung. That's the cycle of 5. So in the previous cycle, Martin Luther was, now the thing is, it was fine for Martin Luther. It did contain xenophobic elements and elements of let's make our Protestant society insular and, real neighbors, talking about, don't, like Jesus said, love your neighbor. Martin Luther says, love your real neighbors. And by real neighbors, he of course means non-Jewish, he means Protestant neighbors who teach their kids properly how to recite the 10 Commandments and everything. None of these savages who just go to church. He's very specific with his definition of neighbor. Anyway, so as a result of that, I was being very, or whoever that was reading was being very soft on, sometimes we go soft on Martin Luther because we often are hard on Martin Luther. And so anyway, but objectively, this past week, I'll have to put at a C, whereas this week, as we've already stated, this Nag Hammadi was between a C and a D. So, not by much, but Martin Luther did win this previous round. So today, we're going to read whatever comes next after the secret book of James. Now, again, as I pointed out before, if you were to go into a library and choose your 27 favorite books and burn the rest, then what does that book that you burned in that corner have to do with that book in that corner? Maybe nothing, right? And so similarly, just because what we read last time was not great doesn't mean anything about what we're going to read today. Apparently we're doing this today. Hey, Edward.
Hey, Gwydion. How's it going?
Can't complain. Where are you right now?
I'm at church.
Really? Which church is that?
I'm at my church. Some folks like to have an intercessory, a priest or something. Others may connect with a statue of a personified deity, or God, or Jesus as the human form of Yahweh, or
right.
That kind of thing. But for me, to connect with the source of life, nothing beats old Mother Ocean.
That's nice. Well, I won't take too much of your time. I was just wondering, what is this music we're listening to?
I have no idea what the music is. That's a different Edward. I think you're looking for Editor Edward. He's in your future. I'm in your past.
Oh, okay. I guess we got our wires crossed. Hey, Editor Edward. Yes? There you are. This is the 200th episode of Chicken Philosophy.
All right.
Woo! Woo! There are tiers of ways that you can experience this book to one degree or another. If you want to experience the whole book, then there's a link in the description where you can buy this physical book. Now, you might get there and be like, what? He expects me to pay that? No, but what it is it's high quality color. And on Kindle self-publishing, that is literally, very close to the least I can possibly charge you for this. And of that, I get a few dollars, maybe, if you buy that. So there's a lot of illustrations. There's illustrations so there's a lot of short stories,
And in the midst of these short stories, if you start at the beginning and think of it as short stories, then one of the short stories you'll be like, oh wait, this feels like a continuation of what I read earlier. And then gradually the New World Empire and the Interdimensional Coffee House start to become. So yeah, in the Interdimensional Coffee House, I'll just give you this one little spoiler. There are these palaces of New Ancient Land, which exist in a place that's sort of astral, sort of virtual. Originally it was astral, then it kind of became virtual, but then I didn't like that very much, so I made it into... It's like super futuristic virtual. And there's some crossover with astral and multidimensional space. I leave it intentionally unclear because I don't want to have to like say whether it's sci-fi or fantasy. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, there's these palaces. They're like back when I was in the order and I didn't hate it, or I hadn't left yet. And I was creating a futuristic version of like an initiatory order, like the Rites of Eleusis or something, you know. So there were, I think, 13 palaces of New Ancient Land, but we only ever talk about like 4 or 5 of them. And in Palace 1, which is the most basic, like it's the equivalent of Neophyte in the Golden Dawn, and there's like certain mantras and certain things that are associated with different palaces. And the one that is associated with Palace 1, sort of like for Dune fans, fear is the mind killer, fear is the little death that brings total obliteration. I will face my fear, I will allow it to pass over me and through me, and only I will remain. Something like that. I might have left out part. So the one that people get in Palace 1 of New Ancient Land is, I am a feather in the wind. I am the wind, and I am the feather. I am the source, and I am the destination. I am here now. And this Hafiz poem reminded me of that. Other tiers are, you can get the Kindle version, of course. I didn't have one, now I do. If you click the link in the description and then switch it over to Kindle version, it's substantially less expensive than the physical version. But I would encourage you to get the physical version, not just for selfish reasons, but because it's nice to have. I'd like to see this on people's bookshelves. And the free way that you can experience a lot of this, not all of it, but a lot of it, is to check out this playlist. It's called The Multiverse Cartographer. And you can watch me a little bit like this plus 20 kg. And, before Chicken Philosophy, back in the, when I was just doing Buddhist books, I was in Delhi for most of it. And you're reading off a screen, reading off the monitor, occasionally looking at the camera, reading off the monitor for an hour and a half. But I wrote what I was reading, and I wrote it for that episode. And what it is, sometimes I'll read out of the book and then read my commentary about what I read out of the book. But I'm not talking to you, I'm reading it. I wrote the commentary and then recited it. It's okay. I enjoy it. I'm glad I did it because all of those ideas were just bouncing around in here, and only once in 8 years would there be somebody like stoned enough and interested enough, and the weather was just right where they would be interested in hearing any of it. And then I was only able to go on and on and on about it for like maximum an hour or two. So I took the whole like 30 hours of lore surrounding this book and the story of the New World Empire and the Interdimensional Coffee House, and I put it on that fucking playlist. There it is. It's out of my brain. I don't need to carry it around anymore. It's on YouTube, and God's willing, it will remain on YouTube for centuries.
I am that life, now and forever. I am.
All right, thank you, builders of the Addendum. I don't know. This is the last episode of Chicken Philosophy before the Christmas holidays. It's going to be a week or so. Oh, you know what I forgot to do? I was going to open with this.
So this is Magali, and her channel is, what's your channel called?
It's just my name. It's
It's-
Magali.
yeah. So subscribe to her channel. You click there. Okay.
So yeah, that's our friend. Been corresponding on the internet for a year or so, but our first time hanging out. So do please feel free to click subscribe on her channel. She's a local YouTube celebrity here in Goa, you might say. Yeah. Social experiment. Experimenting with being social. Those are two different things. They don't really fit. Yeah. Okay, so let's bring up the spectrum. Over here on this side, or let's say over here on this side, you have the people who say, this is the truth the church doesn't want you to have because you would become instantly enlightened and one with Jesus. We'll put that over here. And the whole thing about the people who put together the Bible were like, this one's kind of dull, isn't it? Isn't it kind of dull and repetitive and just kind of stupid? I think if we expected people to believe this, that might be too much. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John and all the letters of Paul and the Old Testament, sure, but this, we got to draw a line somewhere. That'd be over here. So, pick your band of the spectrum or be off the spectrum. I always encourage ignoring the spectrum. Ignore the false dichotomies. This is to remind you that there's something better available for you. It's called Zen Buddhism Part 6, and I recorded it today. Yes, 2 in one day. One on Buddhist Books podcast and one in Chicken Philosophy. See, that's what happens when I take a few days off. I get a little too much backed up. I can't think of a good metaphor that doesn't veer off into Gwydion territory. What am I talking about? Yeah, so it's a different outfit, but it's the same face, and it's called Zen Buddhism Part 6, and we read the chapter or lecture, whatever, written by Ehe Dogen, entitled One Bright Pearl. And it's really good. You should watch that instead of Nag Hammadi Part 7 on Chicken Philosophy. So check it out. Zen Buddhism Part 6. Bye! We are not going to be the pupils and disciples of the papists, but their masters and judges. For once, we too are going to be proud and brag with these blockheads, Devo.
Blockhead! Squared off! Blockhead! 8 corners! Blockhead! 90-degree angles! Flat top! Blockhead! Step straight ahead! Blockhead! Snake eyes! Blockhead! 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 Goo top! Blockhead! Squared off! Blockhead! 8 corners! Blockhead! 90-degree angles! Flat top! Blockhead! Step straight ahead! Blockhead! Stop parts! Blockhead! Blockhead!
All right, thank you, Devo. The Purple Hall of the City of Jade. The Dark Pass of the Sea. It is also called the border region of the Snow Mountains. The Primal Pass. The realm of the greatest joy. The land without boundaries, and the altar upon which consciousness and life are made. That which is, existence itself, is God. The entities called Edward, Joab, whatever your name is, are temporal illusions. They are born and they die. But existence, the only thing that exists, which is everywhere and all things, carries on. So if you have some idiot asshole standing in a robe behind a pulpit, and he's got an image that's supposed to represent God behind him, and he stands between you and it and tells you, you will not get to it unless you do this, and is everybody gone? Also suck my
then that's what they call exoteric. Esoteric is just recognizing, meditating, closing your eyes, becoming one with the great being, the only being there is. If you want. I know Gordon hated all that oneness shit.